Hello, friends. How are you today? Wow, it was really something the last 24 hours in the Schumann because the data disappeared and then this morning reappeared. What is happening here with my chart? Interesting. Okay. What I want to do in this video is talk to you about the time of the missing data, which is right here. Okay. And then all this data was added back. There was some very interesting astrology at that time with some meaning that I think is really important. Then I want to go over the astrology chart of the wave image, the first wave image that I showed you guys in the last video, because it's so fascinating. This image is very, very reminiscent of the shape and structure of that wave image. And before we do that, I want to show you this. Check this out. Wow. See this, wow, this wiggly pattern here. Now, what's really interesting is that we've seen this before in much more vibrant color and detail, April 2020. It's so fascinating because there was another event that just began today. I just think it's very interesting that this wave pattern, which in my view coincided with the end of the actual first expression of the pandemic virus stuff, and now there it is again, the day that this begins. And now what's interesting, here we go, now it shows. So look at this black line. And it's so fascinating because these meetings are starting, one would think they probably start around 9 a.m., and there's a black line on the chart. So I don't have any conclusions. I just thought I would point those things out. So here is my technological effect playlist, and I have some really great videos in here where I go into detail about what this might be and if it's a technology, how it might work. So now let's get started and take a look at what happened when the data stopped. Well, as many of you have noticed, there was no data on the chart from here on all day Saturday. This part of the wave that I talked about in my last video, when you put the mirror together, it's reminiscent of this image. So interesting because it's like what is not conscious is brought to light and then presented consciously to us. And what's interesting is you see that in the astrology of when the data stopped as well. You can see that all the data for all three black charts was stopped at 20. Okay, so this is Schumann no data. There are 3 or 4 things that are really meaningful here. The first is that the Sun and Mercury are both at 0 degrees of Gemini. 0 degrees is a critical point in the astrology chart, and 0 degrees is where the energy is the most potent. The energy of Gemini, the full spectrum, the full energy of Gemini is at 0 degrees, and you have the Sun and Mercury conjunct, meaning both at 0 degrees. And I think that is very, very powerful. If you listen to my 2 astrology videos from the eclipse, especially the one where I talk about Saturn, I spoke about the difficulties that Mercury has had speaking out properly. And you can see here that, Mercury is still retrograde. You see that little R there. You have to go look at those 2 videos. They were both so amazing. One about Saturn holding back the ancient influences at the lunar eclipse. That's how I read that energy. And the other aspect of the lunar eclipse was the goddesses, specifically Lilith and Ceres, who stood forth to assist humanity and protect the home in Cancer from the psychopathic influence of Medea, who, by the way, is conjunct Hades. I didn't put Hades in here, but Hades is at about 10 degrees on this chart. So, nice. So the Lord of the Underworld. So I spoke about how Mercury kind of just hasn't been fully comfortable yet coming around the wheel of the last few months to be able to really speak out. But now Mercury is in his home sign of Gemini. But the energy right now is like when you pull back a bow, right? Right before releasing it, right when this energy of the Schumann disappeared from the data. So it's interesting because as soon as Mercury turns direct, it's going to go back into Taurus and then turn direct about June 18th. Then it's going to proceed forward and re-enter Gemini. We right now, I think, are getting a preview of what is going to happen when Mercury goes into Gemini, because there's some, especially in the United States, there is some fascinating information coming out. But as Elon Musk mentioned on Twitter in the past few days, he didn't even know about this until a week ago. So you can go look at his Twitter for more information on that. Now, here's the other interesting thing that happened when the data turned off. You see here how the moon is at 14 degrees in Aquarius. Well, it is exactly square Uranus in Taurus. Uranus in Taurus can be quite dramatic, right? It brings sudden changes and shocks. The moon square Uranus in Taurus can allow us to access our emotions over this. And it's not easy and it's rocky. It's rocky because it's a square. And what it invites us to do is take care of ourselves and our own emotions while observing the shocking events in a somewhat detached manner. But there's an opportunity here for personal healing. Separating out that which is not mine from old patterns, old familial patterns, from shocking events that have happened. So that's what it invites us to do, because the moon is personal. Whatever these shocking events are, we're considering it personally for ourselves. And the moon home sign is Cancer. And my lunar eclipse goddess video addressed all the energies that are going on in Cancer right now with Ceres, Lilith, and Medea, and what is happening. It's a huge story, and it's not comfortable. That's adding even more discomfort piling on top of us, because there's an aspect of the shocking events going on and what will be brought to light, which we're getting a preview of with Mercury and the Sun at 0 degrees, but it's going to take a while for Mercury to get back into Gemini. This is the astrology chart for the Schumann image that I did my last video on. The astrology of this image, which is from this video here. And what I wanted to point out here was that there was a yod in the chart, and I spent a bunch of time researching this today. The yod was from the ascendant and Zeus, the asteroid Zeus, to the North Node, but also to the asteroid Victoria. But I want to focus on the North Node. That's a much more powerful influence in the chart, number one. And number two, it was a key factor in the eclipse. It was a key factor with Saturn assisting in holding back the energies of the ancient that have been influencing humankind. The true node is at 22 degrees, and it always moves in retrograde, or the North Node. So I'm going to do the reading for 22 degrees because that is where the energy is expressing to. The energy is quite apt here. 22 Taurus in Sabian symbols is a white dove flying over troubled waters. It talks to overcoming crisis. It talks to the way that we face crisis, the emotional upheavals, the eruption of unconscious forces with which we have to contend, that we can make a choice of how we will face upheavals and crises. What is absolutely fascinating to me is that the traditional interpretation by Rudyard of this symbol talks about Noah and the ark. And in the first image, which we are interpreting the astrology for, I interpreted that the Ark of the Covenant showed in that image. We're going to look at that in a second. But I just thought the fact that he talked about an ark, because the ark held all of humanity, and Noah's ark succeeded because Noah listened to God. He listened to his guidance from within, to God's promptings. And in doing so, he saved humanity. He saved the animals. He persevered despite people questioning him, questioning his sanity even. Why are you building an ark in the middle of the desert or whatever it was? Noah just kept going about his business, and in the face of great difficulty, built the ark. We could almost think that the troubled waters that this energy of Taurus 22 speaks to, it could be about communing with the divine, listening to those inner promptings and following them no matter what. That's my dog snoring in the background. What a sweetie. He's just having some kind of great dream, it looks like. Yeah. Because the promptings of God to us, it's deeply, deeply personal. It is like a dream that is personally for you, that only you can know about. To describe it to anyone else, it's beyond one's ability to do so properly. It's impossible to communicate the richness, the nuances of a dream in just human words. And this is what the guidance of God to us individually is like. And the white dove flying over troubled waters very well may be about our willingness to proceed forth, knowing the promptings of our own soul, despite what is going on around us in life, in family, in society, among friends, whether we are supported or not in the human world in this, whether we're understood or not, to follow that inner voice, the white dove flying over troubled waters. I like to say the following line frequently because it came to me one day when I was writing. I volunteered to write a spiritual message for our church bulletin. And what came to me was, the safest place is in the heart. The heart is our home, our spiritual home, our connection with the soul. The portal of the heart is the portal to God, the portal to the soul, just as the Ark of the Covenant was the portal to God in ancient times. And today we have that, and we are aware, we're conscious enough to understand that the portal is within the portal to our own soul. To walk forward, to live in communion with the divine, following those inner promptings, causes us to be like a dove flying over troubled waters. We're safe in the air and untouched by the surges below us. And I feel that this is a way to proceed through life. It's an adventure because we have the ability to embody these things in new ways now, with new tangibility. And this is what yads are about, right? This is what yads are about in the astrology chart. It's called the finger of God, and it points to what the divine would like to see transpire. This is the offer for us, here. This is the offer. The offer is Start embodying this, and perhaps there can start to be an understanding that it doesn't matter if the outside world accepts you or judges you. Your relationship with yourself and your relationship with the divinity that is within you, that you are an incarnation of, that you embody, and nothing else matters when you go with God's guidance for you.